The Dominion had been conquering worlds for 300 years. Their empire stretched across 2,000 star systems, and they had never lost a war. When their scouts found a small human outpost on a frozen moon at the edge of known space, they saw an easy target. Commander stood on the bridge of his warship and studied the images on his screen. The outpost was small, just a collection of metal buildings sitting on gray rock. His scanners showed 37 humans inside. They had no warships, no defense platforms, and no heavy weapons. Their communication equipment was old and weak. "What is this place?" asked his intelligence officer. "A geological survey station, Commander. The humans are studying the mineral content of the moon. Our records show it has been here for 6 years." Made a sound of disgust. Humans were a young species, barely 2 centuries into space travel. The Dominion had been watching them, trying to decide if they were worth conquering. So far, they seemed soft, weak. They spent their time on science and exploration instead of building proper military forces. "Send 3, ordered. 200 soldiers. I want the station captured and all personnel taken alive for questioning." The officer hesitated. 200 seems excessive for 37 scientists, Commander. "I am being generous. The High Council wants human prisoners to study. I will not risk failure over a few extra soldiers." The launch 20 minutes later watched them descend toward the moon's surface, 3 dark shapes against the stars. He expected the operation to take less than an hour. He was wrong. Inside Station 77, Captain Park sat in the small room that served as his office. He was reading a report about rock samples when his computer made a soft beeping sound. He looked at the screen and saw 3 red dots approaching from orbit. Was 42 years old. He had short black hair that was starting to turn gray at the temples, and his face carried the calm expression of a man who had seen many dangerous situations. He pressed a button on his desk. "Please come to my office." Lieutenant arrived 30 seconds later. She was younger than, with sharp eyes and quick movements. She looked at his screen and understood immediately. She asked, 3 ships, about 200 soldiers based on the size. Nodded slowly. She did not look worried. "How long until they land?" 40 minutes, maybe 45 if they're being careful. "Should I wake the others?" Check the time. It was very early in the station's artificial day cycle. Most of his people were still sleeping. "Let them rest for another 20 minutes. They'll need their energy." Almost smiled. "I'll prepare some coffee." She left the office and returned to his report. To anyone watching, he looked like a man who had just received news about a minor schedule change, not an incoming military assault. This was because Park was not a scientist. Neither was anyone else in Station 77. The station had no official name in Earth's military records. It was listed only as a number, buried deep in classified files that even most generals could not access. But the people who worked there called it by another name, the Den. It was home to Earth's Black Halo division. Black Halo did not officially exist. There were no recruiting posters, no training academies, no public records of any kind. Its members were selected from the very best soldiers, spies, and specialists that humanity produced. Out of every million people who served in Earth's military, perhaps one was good enough to be considered for Black Halo. Out of those, perhaps 1 in 100 survived the training. The 37 people sleeping in Station 77 represented 11 years of preparation. They had trained together in every environment imaginable: deserts, jungles, frozen wastelands, the vacuum of space. They had learned to fight with weapons, without weapons, with improvised tools. They had studied alien languages, alien psychology, alien technology. They had been placed on this remote moon for one purpose: to wait. Earth's leaders knew that alien contact was coming. They knew that some species would be friendly and some would not. Black Halo was humanity's insurance policy, a force so skilled and so secret that no enemy would see them coming until it was far too late. Finished his coffee and walked to the station's central hub. His team was waking up now, moving through their morning routines with quiet efficiency. There was no panic, no shouting, no rushing. They had practiced this scenario hundreds of times. Sergeant Lee was the first to report too. He was a thin man with steady hands and eyes that missed nothing. In his previous life, before Black Halo, he had been the best sniper in the Korean Special Forces. "I'll take position in Maintenance Shaft 7, said. "Good sight lines to the main corridor." Nodded. "Remember, we want prisoners." "Understood. I'll leave a few alive." Master Sergeant Han approached next. She was a small woman, barely over 5 feet tall, with a gentle face that made her look like someone's favorite aunt. This appearance was deeply misleading. Had spent 20 years mastering 17 different martial arts. She had once killed an armored soldier with a pencil. "Gamma Cell is ready," she reported. "We'll hold the command center." "Good. Remember, they'll expect scientists. Give them what they expect at first." Smile was not gentle at all. "Of course, Captain." One by one, the rest of his team checked in. Each person knew their role. Each person was calm. They had been waiting 6 years for this moment. Outside, they landed in a cloud of dust. 200 soldiers in powered armor formed up in perfect lines, their weapons gleaming under the cold light of distant stars. Squad leader looked at the small human station and felt almost embarrassed. This was not a battle. This was pest control. He gave the signal to advance. They moved toward the station's outer airlock, walking with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. They did not know that 37 pairs of eyes were watching them through hidden cameras. They did not know that every step they took was being analyzed, predicted, and planned for. They did not know that they were walking into a trap designed by the most dangerous humans who had ever lived. In the command center, Captain watched the enemy approach. He took a slow breath and spoke into his communicator. "All teams, this is actual. We have guests. Let's make them feel welcome." The lights in Station 77 dimmed to combat mode, and humanity's elite went to work. They breached the outer airlock at exactly 3:47 hours station time. Squad leader was the first through the door, his weapon raised and ready. Behind him came 20 of his best shock troopers, each one wearing powered armor that could stop most bullets and small explosions. The corridor beyond the airlock was empty. Frowned behind his helmet. He had expected to find frightened humans, maybe hiding behind furniture or running away. Instead, there was nothing but gray walls and dim lighting. "Spread out," he ordered through his communicator. "Standard sweep formation. The humans are hiding deeper inside." His soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, covering each other as they advanced. Their motion sensors showed life signs ahead, clustered in what appeared to be a central area. The humans were retreating, grouping together for protection. It was exactly what frightened prey always did. "Pathetic," one of his soldiers muttered. "They're not even trying to fight." Quiet said, "Stay focused." They had moved about 30 meters into the station when the first soldier died. There was no warning, no sound. One moment, Trooper Vex was walking beside the wall, and the next moment his head simply vanished. His body stood for a half-second before falling to the ground. Before could react, 2 more of his soldiers dropped. He saw brief flashes of light from somewhere above, a hidden position in the ceiling. "Contact, contact," screamed. "Return fire." His soldiers opened fire toward the ceiling, filling the corridor with bright energy bolts. The noise was deafening. Smoke and dust filled the air. When they stopped shooting, there was nothing there. No body, no blood, no sign that anyone had ever been in that position. "Where did he go?" one soldier asked, his voice shaking. Did not have an answer. He activated his thermal imaging, searching for heat signatures. The device showed nothing except his own soldiers. The humans had somehow hidden themselves from his sensors completely. Then the lights went out. True darkness fell over the corridor, the kind of darkness that existed in deep space, where no light had ever reached. Night vision activated automatically, painting the world in shades of green and gray. He could see his soldiers standing around him. He could see the walls. He could not see any humans. But he could hear them. Soft footsteps coming from everywhere and nowhere. Controlled breathing, so quiet it was almost below hearing. And something else, a faint clicking sound like fingers tapping against metal. "Form a circle," commanded, "backs together." His soldiers tried to obey. They were well-trained, experienced fighters who had won many battles, but they had never fought an enemy like this. The first scream came from the edge of the formation. Spun toward the sound and saw one of his soldiers being dragged backward into the darkness by something he could not see. The soldier's weapon fired wildly, hitting nothing. Then the screaming stopped. More attacks came, faster than could track. His soldiers fired in all directions, their shots lighting up the corridor in brief flashes. In those flashes, caught glimpses of movement, human shapes that seemed to flow through the darkness like water, appearing and disappearing before anyone could aim at them. "Fall back," ordered. "Everyone fall back to the airlock." They tried to retreat, but the humans were between them and the exit now. Heard fighting behind him, beside him, in front of him. Bodies fell. Weapons clattered to the ground. In less than 2 minutes, his squad of 20 was reduced to 5. Found himself backed against a wall, his weapon pointing into darkness that seemed to go on forever. His remaining soldiers stood with him, their breathing fast and frightened. "What are these things?" one of them whispered. The answer came from the darkness, spoken in perfect language with a human accent. "We are what happens when your people attack the wrong station." A figure stepped out of the shadows. It was a human male, thin and ordinary-looking, holding a rifle that looked too small to be dangerous, but had seen what that rifle could do. The human looked at the 5 surviving soldiers with an expression that was almost bored. "My name is Sergeant Lee," he said calmly. "I'm going to give you a choice. You can drop your weapons and surrender, or you can die. You have 3 seconds to decide." Raised his weapon. He never saw the shot that killed him. When Commander received the final transmission from Squad Leader, all he heard was a calm human voice speaking. "Commander, this is Station 77. Your soldiers chose poorly. Send more and they will share the same fate. Or you can leave now and we will pretend this never happened." Stared at his communication screen. His hands were shaking, not from fear but from rage. 20 soldiers, his best soldiers, killed by scientists. No, not killed by scientists. Something else had happened down there. Something he did not understand. "Send the rest," he commanded his officers. "Every soldier we have. I want that station destroyed and every human inside brought to me in pieces." 180 soldiers prepared to assault Station 77. They checked their weapons 3 times. They reviewed the layout of the station. They swore oaths of vengeance for their fallen brothers. Inside the station, the humans were also preparing. Lieutenant walked through the corridors, checking each defensive position. She found Sergeant cleaning his rifle. "Nice work," she said. He shrugged. "They made it easy. No discipline. They panicked as soon as they couldn't see. The next wave will be harder. They'll come with everything they have." Smiled slightly. "Good, I was getting bored out here." In the command center, Captain watched the enemy unloading more soldiers on the surface. He counted them carefully, 180 combat troops plus support personnel. "All teams, this is actual," he said into his communicator. "Second wave incoming, approximately 180 hostiles. Remember your training, control the environment, control the enemy, and try not to kill all of them. We need some alive for questioning." Master Sergeant Hand's voice came back through the communicator, light and cheerful. "Understood, Captain. I'll save a few." Leaned back in his chair and watched the soldiers form up outside. They moved with anger now, not just confidence. That was good. Angry soldiers made mistakes. And Black Halo was very good at making enemies pay for their mistakes. The second wave of soldiers entered Station 77 with fire and fury. They did not move carefully like the first group. They came fast and hard, weapons blazing, destroying everything in their path. They burned through doors. They blasted through walls. They were determined to crush the humans with overwhelming force. Commander watched from orbit, nodding with approval. This was proper warfare. No more careful advances. No more treating the humans with respect. Just raw, unstoppable power. But the humans of Black Halo had expected this. Captain had divided his team into 3 groups, each with a specific job. Alpha Cell would hold the main corridor. Beta Cell would strike from hidden positions. Gamma Cell would wait in the command center for the final confrontation. Lieutenant was the leader of Alpha Cell's engineering section. She was a quiet woman who preferred machines to people, and she had spent the last 2 hours turning the main corridor into a death trap. They advanced through the corridor in tight formation, their boots splashing through shallow water that covered the floor. They did not think about the water. It was only a few centimeters deep, probably a broken pipe somewhere. Nothing important. They were wrong. Had redirected water from the station's recycling system into the corridor. She had also exposed several electrical conduits along the walls, hiding them behind loose panels. When they reached the middle of the corridor, she pressed a button. Electricity surged through the water. The soldiers screamed as their powered armor conducted the current directly into their bodies. Some fell immediately. Others stumbled, their systems failing, their muscles locked in painful spasms. In the confusion, Alpha Cell opened fire from covered positions at both ends of the corridor. 30 died in less than a minute. The survivors tried to retreat, but they found their path blocked by a wall of wreckage, furniture and equipment that specialists had piled up while they were distracted by the electricity. They were trapped between 2 groups of humans who fired with perfect accuracy. "Push forward," the commander shouted. "Break through." They tried. Some of them made it past Alpha Cell's position, running deeper into the station. This was part of the plan. Beta Cell was waiting for them. Corporal Sara was small, even by human standards. She had been born with a flexible body that could bend in ways most people found uncomfortable to watch. Black Halo had trained her to use this gift for infiltration work. She led her team through the station's ventilation system, metal tunnels that were designed for air flow, not people. They had scanned these tunnels and concluded they were too small for adult humans to use. This was true for normal humans. Beta Cell was not normal. The surviving soldiers moved through a wide corridor, checking every corner, every shadow. They had learned from the first assault. They were being careful now. Then the ceiling opened above them. Sora dropped onto a soldier's shoulders, her knife finding the gap between his helmet and armor before he could react. She twisted, using his falling body to launch herself at the next soldier. Her team followed, appearing from vents all around the corridor. They tried to fight back, but Beta Cell never stayed in one place long enough to hit. They struck and vanished, moving through spaces that should have been impossible. One soldier saw a human disappear into a vent that was barely 30 centimeters wide. "How?" he asked, just before Sora's knife found his throat. Beta Cell killed 18 soldiers in 4 minutes, then melted back into the ventilation system without a single casualty. The remaining finally reached the command center. There were about 50 of them left, less than a third of the force that had entered the station. They were scared now, but they were also determined. The command center was the heart of the station. Capture it, and the battle would be over. They breached the door with explosives and rushed inside, weapons ready. They found a single human woman standing in the middle of the room. Master Sergeant Han looked at the 50 armed soldiers and smiled. She was wearing simple clothes, not armor. She had no weapon in her hands. "Hello," she said in perfect. "I've been waiting for you." The commander aimed his rifle at her. "Where are the others? Where is your leader?" "Oh, they're busy, but don't worry, I'm enough for all of you." The commander laughed. It was a harsh sound filled with anger and disbelief. One unarmed female against 50 soldiers. Smile did not change. "You rely too much on your weapons, it makes you predictable." The first soldier lunged at her, trying to grab her arm. What happened next was too fast for most of them to follow, moved like water flowing around a stone. She caught the soldier's arm, twisted, and broke it in 3 places. Before he could scream, she had taken his rifle, fired twice into the soldiers behind him, and thrown the weapon aside. See, predictable. They attacked all at once. 50 soldiers with powered armor and advanced weapons against one small human woman. 3 minutes later, 47 of them were on the ground, dead or unconscious. Stood among them, breathing slightly harder than before. Her clothes were torn and she had a small cut on her cheek. Otherwise, she was unharmed. The 3 survivors stared at her with pure terror in their eyes. "Now then," said, brushing dust from her shoulder, "let's talk about surrender." Up in orbit, Commander watched his tactical display. The life signs of his soldiers were disappearing, one by one. In less than an hour, a force of 200 elite warriors had been reduced to less than 60, and those 60 were now prisoners. He had attacked a geological survey station with overwhelming force. He had lost. His hands shook as he reached for the communication console. He needed to call for help. He needed reinforcements, heavy weapons, perhaps even orbital bombardment. But before he could send the message, his screen flickered. A human face appeared, the same man who had answered before. Captain Park looked at him with calm, patient eyes. "Commander," said, "I think we need to have a conversation about what happens next." For the first time in his long military career, Commander felt genuine fear. Commander stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the tactical display. The numbers did not make sense. They could not make sense. He had sent 200 soldiers to capture 37 scientists. Now, less than 3 hours later, 147 of those soldiers were dead. The rest were prisoners. His assault force had been destroyed by people who were supposed to be studying rocks. "Commander," his first officer said quietly, "what are your orders?" His mind raced. He could call for reinforcements, but that would take days. He could try orbital bombardment, but his weapons were not powerful enough to destroy the entire station, and the humans still had his soldiers as hostages. He could retreat. The thought was bitter, but was old enough to know when a battle was lost. Whatever was happening on that moon, he did not have the forces to deal with it. Better to withdraw, report to the High Council, and let someone else solve this problem. "Prepare for departure," he ordered. "We're leaving." But when his pilots tried to start the engines, nothing happened. "Commander, we have a problem. The engines are not responding." "What? That's impossible." The chief engineer ran diagnostics, his face growing pale as he read the results. "Sir, someone has disabled our engine cores. The damage is precise. They knew exactly where to cut." "But how? We're in orbit. No one could." "Stop talking." He looked at the viewport, at the small moon below, and then at the 3 still sitting on its surface. That had carried his soldiers. That had been left unguarded for the past 2 hours. A new face appeared on his communication screen. It was a human woman with calm eyes and a slight smile. She was sitting in what appeared to be the command chair of his lead. "Hello, Commander. My name is Warrant Officer Shin. I believe you were trying to leave." Felt cold anger rising in his chest. "How did you get onto my ships?" I walked across the moon's surface. In vacuum, that's impossible. Shrugged. My people learned to survive in harsh conditions a long time ago. A few minutes in vacuum is uncomfortable, but not impossible, if you know the right techniques. Did not believe her. He could not believe her. The surface temperature of that moon was 200 degrees below freezing. The radiation alone should have killed her. And yet there she was, sitting in his ship, smiling at him. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to stay where you are, Commander. My captain would like to speak with you, and it would be rude of you to leave before the conversation is finished." The screen switched to another face, Captain Park. The human leader looked tired but satisfied, like a man who had completed a difficult job. "Commander, I apologize for the damage to your ships. We'll repair them before you leave." "Before I leave," laughed bitterly. "You expect me to believe you'll just let me go after I attacked your station, after I tried to capture your people?" "Yes," said simply, "that's exactly what I expect." Stared at him. "Why?" "Because I need you to deliver a message." Down on the moon's surface, the surviving soldiers sat in the station's cargo bay. Their weapons had been taken. Their armor had been removed. They were guarded by a handful of humans who watched them with professional detachment. Sergeant Lee stood at the door, his rifle held loosely in his hands. He was talking quietly with Corporal Sara. "How many did you get?" he asked. 18 confirmed, maybe 20. It was hard to count in the dark. Nodded with approval. Not bad for ventilation work. "You?" 15 in the first wave, another 8 in the corridors. They spoke about killing the way other people might talk about sports scores. There was no boasting, no excitement, just calm comparison of performance. This was their job. They were very good at it. One of the prisoners looked up at them. He was young, barely old enough to be a soldier, and his eyes were wide with shock. "What are you?" he asked in broken human language. Looked down at him. For a moment, something like sympathy crossed his face. "We're soldiers," he said, "just like you." "No, not like us. We trained for years, we won many battles, and you killed us like we were nothing." Crouched down to meet the young soldier's eyes. "Your people have been watching humanity for 50 years. You saw our cities, our factories, our farms. You saw us exploring space, trading with other species, trying to make friends. And you thought we were weak." The young nodded slightly. "You were wrong," continued. "Humans learned a long time ago that the universe is dangerous. We learned that strength comes in many forms. We learned that the soft appearance can hide hard reality." He stood up again. "Your mistake was thinking that what you saw was all we had to offer." In the command center, Captain was explaining the same thing to Commander, in more diplomatic terms. "The Dominion has been expanding for 300 years, said. You've conquered hundreds of species. You've never faced serious resistance. This has made you confident, perhaps too confident." "You think 37 humans can threaten the Dominion?" asked. "No, I think 37 humans just destroyed your assault force. I think Warrant Officer disabled 3 of your ships by herself. I think Master Sergeant defeated 50 of your soldiers in hand-to-hand combat." Paused. "And I think you should ask yourself, if this is what we can do with a geological survey team, what could we do if we actually tried?" Was silent for a long moment. "Your High Council wants human prisoners," continued. "They want to study us, to understand us, to find our weaknesses. Tell them this: there are no human prisoners available. There are only humans who have chosen not to fight yet." He leaned forward. "And Commander, we have been watching you too." The screen showed data files appearing, population statistics, military reports, economic analyses. Recognized some of them. They were classified Dominion documents, the kind that should have been impossible for outsiders to access. "We know your strength," said. "We know your weaknesses. We know the locations of your shipyards, your training facilities, your command centers. We have known these things for a very long time. Then why haven't you attacked? Because we don't want war, Commander, we want peace. But if your people force us to fight, expression hardened. Station 77 is one of 47 similar facilities. Each one is staffed by people like us, the best of the best, trained for years, waiting for exactly this situation. And those 47 stations are just the beginning. Felt something he had not felt in many years, genuine fear for the future of his people. I'll deliver your message, he said quietly. Thank you, Commander. Your ships will be repaired within the hour. Your surviving soldiers will be returned unharmed. Consider it a gesture of goodwill. The screen went dark. Turned to his first officer, who had listened to the entire conversation in shocked silence. Sir, what do we do? Looked out the viewport at the small moon below. The small, insignificant moon that had just changed everything. We go home, he said, and we pray that the High Council listens. Commander's ship returned to space 7 days later. The journey felt longer than any he had ever made. He spent most of it in his quarters, reviewing the data the humans had given him, trying to understand what had happened. His surviving soldiers were quiet. They did not talk about the battle. They did not share stories or complaints. They sat in their bunks and stared at walls, each one lost in private memories of darkness and fear and impossible humans who moved like shadows. When finally stood before the High Council, he felt like an old man. The great chamber was filled with the most powerful leaders of the Dominion, 12 individuals who controlled 2,000 star systems. They looked at him with curiosity and impatience. Commander, the first counselor said, you were sent to capture a small human outpost. Your report says you failed. Explain. Took a deep breath. He had rehearsed this speech many times, but now that the moment had come, words seemed inadequate. Honored Council, I attacked the outpost with 200 of my best soldiers. The humans had no heavy weapons, no warships, no orbital defenses. By every measure, we should have won easily. And yet you did not win. No, First Counselor, I did not. He activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images appeared, recordings from his soldiers' helmet cameras, security footage from the tactical data from the assault. This is what we faced. The council watched in silence as the recordings played. They saw the first squad entering the station, confident and professional. They saw the darkness falling, the screams beginning, the impossible speed of the human attackers. They saw Sergeant Lee appearing from nowhere, killing soldiers with single shots from a position no scanner could detect. They saw the electrified corridor, the ambush in the ventilation system, the systematic destruction of trained warriors by enemies they could barely see. And then they saw Master Sergeant Han. The footage showed her standing in the command center, small and unarmed, facing 50 soldiers in powered armor. It showed what happened next, 3 minutes of violence so fast and precise that it looked like magic. The small human woman moved through the formation like a dancer, breaking bones and ending lives with movements that seemed almost gentle. When the recording ended, the council chamber was completely silent. These were not normal humans, said quietly. They were something else, something their species had hidden from us. What do you mean, hidden? The second counselor asked. Showed them the data files had shared. Population statistics, military structure, territorial information. Basic facts that any species would know about any other. For 50 years, we have watched humanity. We have studied their colonies, their trade routes, their military forces. We believed we understood them. We believed they were soft, more interested in science and exploration than warfare. He paused, letting the words sink in. We were wrong. The humans have been watching us too. They have been preparing for contact with hostile species since before they left their home world. The people in that station, the ones who destroyed my assault force, they are called the Black Halo Division. They are humanity's elite soldiers, trained specifically for situations like this. How many of these elite soldiers do they have? The first counselor asked. According to their captain, there are 2,000, spread across 47 stations throughout human space. 2,000. The first counselor made a dismissive gesture. We have millions of soldiers. 2,000 is nothing. With respect, first counselor, I disagree. 37 of these humans killed 147 of my best warriors in less than 3 hours. One of them disabled 3 by walking across a frozen moon in vacuum. Another defeated 50 soldiers in hand-to-hand combat without taking a serious injury. Met the counselor's eyes directly. If 2,000 humans of this quality decided to attack us, they could cripple our infrastructure in days. That seems unlikely. I thought so too, first counselor, before I saw what they could do. He activated the final recording. It showed Captain Park's face, calm and patient, delivering his message. We know your strength. We know your weaknesses. We know the locations of your shipyards, your training facilities, your command centers. We have known these things for a very long time. The recording continued with warning about what humanity could do if pushed to war. When it ended, turned back to the council. The human captain gave me a message to deliver. He said his people do not want war. They want peace, but they are prepared for war if we force them into it. The third counselor leaned forward. You believe them? I believe what I saw, counselor. I believe that the humans I fought were the most dangerous enemies I have ever faced. I believe that there are more like them, waiting in quiet places across human space. And I believe. He hesitated. This was the part he had struggled with most. I believe we made a mistake. We thought we were evaluating a weak species for conquest. Instead, we were being tested. The humans wanted to see how we would behave when we thought we had power over them, and we attacked. What are you suggesting, Commander? Straightened his shoulders. I am suggesting that we send a diplomatic mission to humanity. I am suggesting that we apologize for my attack and offer fair terms for peaceful relations. I am suggesting that we treat these humans as equals, because if we do not, they will prove that they are our superiors. The council debated for hours. Some called a coward. Some demanded that he be punished for his failure. Some insisted that the Dominion should send a real fleet to destroy the humans once and for all. But in the end, the recording spoke louder than words. The image of Han walking through 50 armed soldiers like they were children. The calm voice of Park explaining exactly how vulnerable the Dominion truly was. The vote was close, but the decision was made. The Dominion would seek peace. Far away, on a frozen moon at the edge of human space, Station 77 returned to its normal routine. The damage from the battle was repaired. The blood was cleaned. The bodies of the fallen were prepared for proper return to their people. Captain Park stood in his office, reading a message that had arrived through encrypted channels. It was from Earth Command, congratulating him on a successful operation. Lieutenant knocked on his door. The repairs are finished. We're back to full operational status. Nodded. Good. Have the team take some rest. They earned it. Do you think they will actually make peace? I think they're smart enough to understand the message. Whether they're wise enough to accept it, he shrugged. That's not our concern. Our job was to show them what humans are capable of. We did that. Smiled slightly. I heard Master Sergeant is disappointed. She was hopping for a second wave. There's always next time. The universe is full of species who think they're the top of the food chain. Turned to look out his window at the stars. Sooner or later, another one will come knocking. When they do, we'll be ready. Outside, the stars shone cold and bright over the silent moon. Station 77 looked exactly like what it pretended to be, a small, unimportant outpost dedicated to studying rocks. But now, somewhere in space, a story was spreading. A story about humans who fought like demons, who appeared from shadows and vanished into walls, who could walk through vacuum and defeat armies with bare hands. The universe was learning a lesson that humanity had known for thousands of years. The quiet ones are always the most dangerous. And humanity had been quiet for a very long time.